Good evening. I'm Tricia Crowley of the League of Women Voters of Champaign County. On behalf of the League, the NAACP, the News Gazette, and Illinois Public Media, I welcome you to tonight's forum. Tonight we'll be talking to the candidates for County Board District number 10. Because of the COVID-19 pandemic, we are unfortunately not presenting this forum in person. Consequently, we will not be accepting questions concurrently with the forum. Questions which have been submitted previously have been grouped together if they were similar, and consequently, your question may not be asked in the form precisely in the form you submitted it. And due to limited time, we may not be able to get to all of the submitted questions. This forum is being broadcast on the League's Facebook live stream and also by Illinois Public Media on their Facebook page. After the forum, it will be available on the League's YouTube channel and also broadcast on UPTV. The UPTV schedule is available on the City of Urbana website. It will also be available on the Vote Champaign website with the candidates' other information. So the order for the candidates is alphabetical, and therefore Mary King, Democrat, will open, and Mike Coble, Republican, will close. Each candidate will be given 2 minutes for an opening statement. I'll then ask the questions that were submitted prior to the forum, and each candidate will have 1 minute to answer these questions. At the end, each candidate will have 2 minutes for a closing statement. Candidates will kindly refrain from any negative attack on the other and will speak only to what they plan to do if elected to office. So we're going to begin. Ms. King.
Thank you. So I'm Mary King. I'm a lifelong resident of Illinois. I grew up in Western Kankakee County, attended university in Chicago, and 17 years ago, I came to Champaign County for work. Currently, I'm a research archaeobotanist at the Illinois State Archaeological Survey. My family and I have lived in Urbana for the past 12 years. My life here has been shaped by volunteering to support Democrats and progressive causes at the local, state, and national level, including the fight to save the Champaign County Nursing Home, Daniel Biss's gubernatorial primary campaign, and the county board primary and general campaigns of Dr. Tanisha King Taylor. I spent all of my weekends this winter and spring canvassing, making phone calls, and meeting with my neighbors across District 10, and I'm still deeply humbled that they decided to give me the chance to represent our district on the ballot this November. If the current state of Champaign County can be summed up in 2 words, they would be deferred maintenance. While it is clear the downtown jail must be shuttered, the next board cannot fail to capitalize on the opportunity to address the needs of the future. It would be irresponsible to advance a facilities plan which only addresses housing space. We must not be focused only on construction, but also on keeping our most vulnerable neighbors out of the system in the first place. By working with the courts and local organizations, we can develop community-based programs which address issues like access to mental health treatment, addiction, and recidivism. As I already mentioned, I grew up in rural Kankakee County. My parents, while both working full-time jobs off of the farm, also grew corn and soybeans, first with my paternal grandparents and now on their own. I intimately know how much rural communities are suffering from depressed crop prices due to Trump's endless trade wars and from a general lack of local investment of opportunity. This is why it is so wonderful that the 50 megawatt photovoltaic solar farm on 1,609 acres of land in rural Champaign County will be developed soon, as it will provide 20 years of guaranteed income for farmers, good paying skilled jobs for labor, and is a boon for the environment. So those are some things that are important to me, and I look forward to answering your questions.
Thank you. Mr. Coble.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mike Coble, and I'm the candidate for Champaign County Board District 10. I'm Champaign County born and raised. I've never lived elsewhere. I'm blessed to have grown up in the city, but with farming on both sides of my family. I'm a graduate of Champaign Central High School, Parkland College, Eastern Illinois University, and Southern Illinois University. I have degrees in fire service management and fire service technology. My father retired from Chanute Air Force Base, and my mother was a nurse, so it seemed like the fire service and EMS was a natural choice for me. I have over 32 years of public administration in fire EMS. I'm retired assistant chief of the University of Illinois Willard Airport Fire Department and retired fire chief of the Eastern Prairie Fire Protection District. I have knowledge and I have worked in public administration and leadership. I've worked with our county, state, and federal agencies. I have experience in project planning and implementation. I have experience with grants and contracts, and I've volunteered with our Champaign County EMA for over 30 years. I have been on the board of directors and president of the Champaign County Freedom Celebration, as well as the Champaign County Fair Board Association. From all this experience, I will bring critical thinking and decision-making skills to our Champaign County Board. Thank you.
Thank you. This question will go to Mr. Coble. What are the biggest challenges facing the board as a whole in 2021, and how would you address those issues?
Well, I think the biggest challenge facing the Champaign County Board in 2021 is our facilities, deferred maintenance, and other critical problems with their infrastructure. Obviously, budgets are going to be down, and there's a lot that needs done. Several of our county facilities are in poor condition, and the board and the staff, unfortunately, have to continue deferring maintenance on these. It's going to take a continual amount of effort and a lot of tough decision making on part of our board. I think the best way to approach it is with the county departments and to work with them in an effort to find areas of gain. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. King, what are the biggest challenges facing the board as a whole in 2021, and how would you address those issues?
So as I mentioned in my opening statement, there's an epidemic of deferred maintenance to county properties, and which is especially apparent in the state of the downtown jail. And the other large issue is going to be the further reduced budget due to the effects of the pandemic. You know, I've been attending committees of the whole and all but one full board meeting for over a year now. And I've been impressed by how efficient county offices already are and how they've already constructed the 2021 budgets that they introduced in August with these reduced revenues in mind. So what I really think we need to do is work with them to seek additional revenue elsewhere, such as from federal grants like the CARES Act.
Okay, thank you. Ms. King, what are the specific issues regarding your district, and how would you address them?
So something that's been an ongoing problem in a lot of places in Champaign County is the ongoing threat of gun violence. I've experienced this firsthand because the fatal incident in October that happened at an apartment building on Colorado, the shooter then stood at the head of the street I live on to fire off some of the shots. And it was scary, but all of this can be tied back to the racial, social, and economic disparities in our district. 25% of families in Champaign County live below the poverty line even before COVID. And I think it's important that the revenue that's being brought in from the cannabis sales should be used to expand existing programs and build new ones to target these at-risk youth and to help the communities that have been affected by problems like racism, poverty, and the war on drugs.
Thank you. Mr. Coble, what are the specific issues regarding your district, and how would you address them?
Well, one in particular is the violent crime that I see occurring in District 10's part of Urbana. I live near the Philo Road in Florida area, and sitting in my living room, frequently I'll see police cars racing to a scene that was either a violent crime or perhaps potentially was a violent crime. I'd like to work with local law enforcement agencies. I know that our cities and our county officers do a phenomenal job of handling their business and taking care of things, but I feel like there could be something more there. These are certainly on an upturn, and several of them have certainly been in my neighborhood as well. So I'd like to work towards some sort of involvement with the county, maybe perhaps represent the county board on some committees involving our communities and churches and things of that nature to curtail these activities.
Okay, we're going to take a short technical break. Do you want to switch over the timekeeping duties from Jonna to Jean? Is that okay? Okay, all right. And this is a question for Mr. Coble. What are your qualifications to be a county board member?
Well, as I stated in my opening, I have over 32 years of proven experience in fire and EMS and emergency management. And from that, I'll bring my critical thinking and decision-making skills. I have experience with project planning and implementation, grant writing, and grant management. In addition, I have worked with county, state, and federal agencies. During this 32 years, I've volunteered with many civic and professional organizations to include our Freedom Celebration and in Rantoul, the Octave Chanute Airspace Museum. Civic pride was something that was installed in all of the Coble children, and it's my desire to continue serving in Champaign County. Thank you.
Ms. King, what are your qualifications to be county board member? You're muted.
My bad, sorry. So I've had 17 years now of work experience in cultural resource management, which is the kind of archaeology I do. And that means that I'm used to digging into dense and multi-layered questions, which have complex answers. So I'm unafraid of doing the homework, learning new facts or skills, and then acting accordingly. I've done my best since I've put my name in for this, I've been attending board meetings, I've been attending caucus meetings. I've tried to learn as much as I can about how the board functions. So I'm going to try to be a responsible and people first candidate. And I believe that that quality will continue to serve me well on the board.
Okay. Ms. King, Jean, you want to, Jean is going to take over for timekeeping. You're muted, Jean, so I can't hear you.
Each of the candidates has 1 minute or 2?
1 minute to answer questions, 2 minutes for closing.
Okay,
Okay,
I will take over.
okay. Thank you, Jean. So, Ms. King, what is your position on asking the voters to change the 3 county elected positions, auditor, coroner, and recorder, from being elected to appointed?
So in the past, most of the time when these questions are put to the voters, they usually elect to support keeping elected offices. I will say this time around, I would say the one exception would be the recorder's office, since the taxpayers are footing a nearly 6-figure salary right now for an official in what is essentially a clerical position. Most other counties in our state have already eliminated the recorder as a separate office. I do think the auditor and treasurer's positions provide important checks and balances for one another, and that any plan to combine them would be irresponsible. On top of that, I also think the coroner provides vital services and should be maintained as is.
Okay, and Mr. Coble, do you want me to repeat the question?
I'm good, yeah. Initially, I think there'd be some state statutes and so forth that need to be looked into, and ultimately this would be a referendum for the voters. But I like and support the concept. The key to me would be to ensure that we end up with the most qualified persons in those responsibilities. And an even bigger key would be to ensure that party influence isn't a factor in the selection process. That's a hurdle that the selection committee is just going to have to stick to and look at people with the best qualifications.
Okay, and Mr. Coble, if these positions are no longer elected, how would you recommend assigning the responsibilities of these offices?
My recommendation would be for a search committee, perhaps of limited county board members and perhaps some guidance from an outside agency to work together to prepare job descriptions, search out candidates, and make recommendations then back to the county board. I think an outside agency to guide all this process will help us assist with reducing some influences. And again, the goal would be to find the most qualified candidates for the job.
Okay, and Ms. King.
So all of the work of the recorder's office could be fulfilled by moving those county staff under the umbrella of the county clerk's office. I think what's most important is that formally elected positions shouldn't be replaced by appointees, especially because those now appointed positions will still be collecting a taxpayer-funded salary.
Okay, thank you. Ms. King, what is your position on maintaining the county elected executive form of government as opposed to changing to a county-wide elected board chair with the county administrator hired by the county board to run day-to-day operations?
So I campaigned against the Republican-led initiative in 2016 to establish the county executive form of government, and I was very chagrined when the board Republicans then managed to convince a small cadre of Democrats to set an outrageous six-figure salary for that position. That was one of those decisions in particular, which strikes me as a prime example of putting politics over people. But until some kind of change can be made, I think the board owes it to the voters. This was their decision to try and work with the executive in the most productive manner possible, and maybe having another referendum in the near future.
Okay, and Mr. Coble, do you want me to repeat the question? It was
I'm
kind
fine.
of,
I'm fine, thank you.
okay,
I think the concept is a doable one. I think the roles and responsibilities perhaps need to be looked at again and more clearly defined. There's obviously some issues going on there, be it personnel or be it miscommunication and roles and responsibilities. We're already 2 years, I believe, into this, so I'd like to see it right out and see where we end up at the end of the 4 years, perhaps next go around election time. But again, the board needs to work together to make this successful. And I'll say it again, everyone needs to work together to make this successful. Thank you.
okay. Mr. Coble, the county will adopt new maps for county board districts through redistricting in 2021. What is your position on appointing a neutral and nonpartisan commission to develop this reapportionment redistricting plan for adoption by the county board?
There's a trend or a theme to a lot of my responses. There's always been an issues before, during, and after any mapping changes. If a neutral commission can be formed, that'd be great. Unfortunately, many issues in our county like this, they all seem to be divided along party lines. And that's what we've got to overcome to make some things successful. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. King.
I always think it's important that any redistricting plan is as fair, transparent, and unbiased as possible. And I think a really important thing is that we need to ensure that there is a diversity of people on the panel and not just people with experience. And possibly the results of the recent census would be a good stepping off point for ensuring that this commission reflects the general makeup of the county.
Okay, thank you. Ms. King, what is your position on closing the downtown correctional center and providing appropriate remodeling and facility upgrades to house all county correctional required operations under one roof at the current satellite jail?
Well, closing the downtown jail is not optional. I think I'm one of the only candidates who haven't yet gotten a tour of the downtown jail, because mine was supposed to be the week after the primary, and we all know what happened there. But in the short term, I think we don't have to house all of our jail population locally, that counties like Piatt already have overbuilt facilities with high vacancy rate. And according to the county sheriff at a recent facilities meeting, the price per inmate could be as low as $50 a day. Since it is not a good time to barge ahead with a plan that solely focuses on construction, that housing inmates elsewhere might give the county time to actually get the renovation right the first time, because I don't want another board to be facing these same issues 10 to 15 years down the road.
Okay, Mr. Coble, do you want me to repeat that? I can do that. What is your position on closing the downtown correctional center and providing the appropriate remodeling and facility upgrades to house all county correctional required operations under one roof at the current satellite jail?
Well, I too have not toured the jail. I know that it's been there a very long time. I remember growing up as a child here in Champaign, periodically we had debates about whether the jail was adequate, whether it was big enough, the problems that were facing it. But based on what I know, it certainly seems that we need to take action and move away from that. The satellite jail with upgrades seems like an obvious choice. We certainly have the space for it out there in the Brookings area. And I think we need to also pay close attention to certain programs for inmate intake, such as mental health needs. We're always going to have criminals, and we need to remember that. And we always are going to have adequate facilities for them. the reality is those numbers are also going to continue to rise. I just can't fathom that they would go backwards. So it's a necessary thing to me, and the board's going to have to find a way to work and accomplish this. Thank you.
And Ms. King, what is your position? Did we do this one? I'm sorry, I've gotten off track. What is your position on closing the downtown correctional center and providing the appropriate remodeling and facility upgrades?
We just did that
We
one.
just did one. Okay, I'm off.
I can answer it again.
Okay, that's okay. So are you aware of the criminal justice system assessment that was done for Champaign County in 2013 concerning the jail, but also a comprehensive review of the whole criminal justice system? And if you're aware of that, do you agree or disagree with its conclusions?
So I was not aware of it until I started going to county board meetings, and it's been cited many times by groups like Build Programs Not Jail and First Followers as a jumping off point, because it directly addresses things like the racial disparities in traffic stops and arrests in the jail population, and who is being held for what reasons and for how long, and proposes solutions like different methods of coping with low risk individuals, such as integrating risk assessment protocols and making sure that we aren't, occupying the scarce resource of jail beds with people who could be better served out in the community while they're waiting for trial.
All right. Mr. Coble, are you aware of the criminal justice system assessment that was done for Champaign County in 2013 concerning the jail, but also a comprehensive review of the whole system? And do you agree or disagree with its conclusions?
Well, I am aware of the study, just recently became aware of it. I haven't read the study, talked about it with a few people that have had some, been able to read it. My initial thoughts are that it's 7 years old and it's likely that it's out of date. I'm sure some of the report findings haven't gone away. In fact, they've probably multiplied. I think we can move forward to continue to provide services and support the jail. So that's certainly something I would be interested in taking a look at and reading that study.
Okay, thank you. What more, and this is from Mr. Coble, what more do you think should be done to address structural racism in county government and in the courts?
That's a multifaceted problem. And I think it probably requires a multifaceted approach. Education seems to work really well in these areas. That's been my experience in any way. I think that we need to work with education as a tool to educate our at-risk youth, our families, working with our local schools and churches and community groups to see if we can educate and improve conditions for folks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. King, what more do you think should be done to address structural racism in county government and the courts?
So when you look at counties that have begun to successfully address the systemic problem, what you oftentimes see is that they haven't just done the work to identify issues, like I mentioned before, like the racial disparities in traffic stops, but then they've implemented what are definitive and broad-reaching policy changes. And really, fortunately, the Racial Justice Task Force did a lot of this work for county government years ago, but for some reason, virtually none of it's been put into practice. And I think what we've been missing out before now is the political will to act. And with the changes that have been happening in our society, along with the Black Lives Matter movement, I think now we are going to be able to actually make those changes.
Okay, thank you. And Ms. King, the budget is going to be very difficult for the next couple of years due to the COVID virus. If the budget must be cut to balance it, how would you propose to make those cuts and what would you cut?
So the budget itself it's a living document, and it really is a reflection of the goals and morals of the county. And the board and the county offices really have been carefully budgeting for years now, and the staff have been actively seeking grants and money from other federal programs. Most recently, I can think of the CARES Act funding we've received. So in my opinion, any budget, whatever happens, which we're all going to have to make very difficult decisions, that what we need to do is prioritize retaining county staff who provide vital services to our constituents, especially when they're doing this at pay rates lower than national or even local averages for the positions they fill.
Okay, thank you. And I'll repeat the question, Mr. Coble.
Okay.
The budget is going to be very difficult for the next couple of years due to the COVID virus. If the budget must be cut to balance it, how would you propose to make those cuts, and what would you cut?
Well, the budgets are a huge problem everywhere, and certainly a huge problem our county's facing. And it's not going to go away anytime soon. And there's no easy fix for it either. I think we should look at our departments to see what they have done to reduce their budgets and see if we can work on ways to find a little more. I certainly don't want to reduce services, and I certainly don't want to reduce staff. That's the heartbeat of the county, and those folks are what make it work, and they work very hard at doing so. Again, a tough road to hoe, unfortunately down the road, because this won't be going away anytime soon. The county board may simply have to say no to some things. Tough pill to swallow, but thank you.
Okay, thank you. And this is the last question before your closing. And Mr. Coble, what else should the voters know about you as they consider their vote?
Well, I'd like folks to know that I'm not afraid to tackle tough problems and make tough decisions. When necessary, those are things that I've had to do over my career. And our county's got some issues. I believe in fixing what's broken. And I'd like to say that I would provide common sense service to our county. Thank you.
Okay. And Ms. King, what else should the voters know about you as they consider their vote?
I think I will try my best to always work for people. I wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't important to me how this county functions, how important it is for me to make sure that the county isn't just supporting people as they start their business on their best day, but also there for them when they're facing time in jail or problems with their health on their worst day. We have to do better to be better, and that is why I'm here.
Okay. And we're now down to closing, and you get 2 minutes for closing, and Ms. King will start.
All right, thank you. So first, I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters, the NAACP Champaign County, the News Gazette, and Illinois Public Media for co-sponsoring this forum. It is my belief that those who wish to be elected in 2020 are going to have to prove they will transcend the national political chaos and callousness and show what effective people-centered government looks like. We must communicate openly and honestly, both with our colleagues and with our communities, to craft solid and accessible policies. We must be unafraid of having difficult and even painful conversations, and then take concrete action to heal the wounds this country has inflicted and continues to inflict on Black and Brown Americans, because everyone deserves a life of dignity and happiness. We must always center the needs of the most vulnerable when it comes time to vote. I promise to fight for what I believe is best for District 10, because I'm doing this to serve you, the people. If the current pandemic has shown us anything, is that the future must not look like the past. We have to build back and expand our social safety nets, put people before profits, and go beyond lip service or empty gestures when it comes to confronting inequality. Since none of us can truly be free until we all have freedom, I want this era of local government to be the one when a more just and equitable future in Champaign County became a reality for everyone. Please stay safe and vote by mail or vote early if you can. Thank you again for this, and good night.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Coble, your closing statement.
Thank you. Well, I too would like to thank the League of Women Voters, the NAACP, Illinois Newsroom, and the News Gazette. I'd also like to thank our folks for timing and monitoring. And Mary, I'd like to thank you for stepping up and wanting to serve. I appreciate anyone that will do that. District 10 is a unique blend of residential, commercial, and agriculture, encompassing both the city of Urbana and rural Champaign County. While each of these have their individual concerns, they all have a common bond: they pay taxes. They expect the Champaign County Board to use their hard-earned tax dollars to provide quality professional services, be it management and upkeep of facilities and roads, or quality services and programs. Residents should feel comfortable that the board is managing the daily business of Champaign County in the most logical, professional, and fiscally responsible manner. I believe that I can honor these words and contribute to the moving forward and success of Champaign County. Everyone get out and vote, and thank you.
Okay, thank you for participating in this forum. And thanks again to the League of Women Voters, the NAACP, the News Gazette, and the Illinois Public Media for sponsoring this forum. Thanks to our timer, Jean Paley, who has kept us on schedule. And a very special thanks to Jonna von Behrens, who has put this series of forums together. Just a reminder, it's not too late to register to vote. Information is available on the League site and on the County Clerk's website. Please vote. Thank you. Good night.